In the dark underbelly of Liverpool, there existed a notorious family whose name struck fear across the Griesdale estate, the Gee family. A name synonymous with crime, power, and violence, the Gee family was more than just a criminal organization. It was an empire that controlled the streets, ran the drug trade, and had everyone in their pocket. They were feared not only by the public, but also by their rivals and even the law. Their operation was vast, generating over £20,000 a week, and they used everything from encrypted phones to disposable bikes to evade the authorities. It wasn't just business, it was a way of life. But as with every empire built on crime, it was destined to fall. Despite their power and influence, the Gee family's grip on the estate began to slip as the public and law enforcement grew more determined to take them down. In a span of less than a year, a specialized rogue police unit was created specifically to combat their operations. Over 450 arrests were made, millions of pounds in cash seized, and their criminal business began to unravel. Yet it wasn't the law alone that threatened their empire. It was the people they had oppressed for so long who were starting to rise against them. As residents began to speak up and resist the Gee family's control, things got worse. What began as a slow uprising turned into a full-blown war between the Gee family and a rival gang from Kirkdale. Violence escalated, and by 2004, the streets of Liverpool were rife with shootings, bombings, and a growing sense of lawlessness. The Gee family was at war with itself and with everyone else. Darren Gee, the most infamous member of the Gee family, would soon learn that no one, not even family, was safe in a world where violence and betrayal ran rampant. In April of 2004, Darren found himself at the center of an assassination plot. A hitman, a former SAS operative, had been hired to take Darren out. However, in a cruel twist of fate, Darren's closest friend, Craig Barker, was the one who paid the ultimate price, killed in Darren's place. This tragic loss would mark a turning point in Darren's life, one that would set him on a path of vengeance and destruction. Fueled by anger and guilt, Darren's world began to spiral out of control. He made it his mission to seek revenge on those who had wronged him, leading to the brutal killing of David Reagan, a man he held responsible for betraying him. With Reagan's blood on his hands, Darren's criminal activities reached their peak, and soon, his violent actions caught the attention of the police. His life, built on violence, was about to take an irreversible turn. In a twist of fate, Darren's violent campaign would lead him straight to prison. Arrested and convicted, Darren found himself serving a lengthy sentence for the crimes he'd committed, including murder and conspiracy. But rather than reflecting on his actions, Darren continued his defiance. Prison was no place for remorse or regret. It was a world of survival, where the strongest dominated. Darren's reputation as a violent inmate quickly spread throughout the prison system. He was known for his relentless behavior, often engaging in fights with guards and fellow inmates. Even behind bars, Darren maintained his position of power, never backing down from anyone. Yet, the more he fought, the more he found himself alienated from any possibility of redemption. His time behind bars wasn't about change, it was about survival. When Darren was finally released from prison, the world outside was vastly different from the one he'd left. His family was in disarray, his former criminal empire a shadow of its former self, and Darren was faced with the harsh reality of life after prison. He was free, but his mind was still trapped in the darkness of his past. His time in prison had hardened him, but it also gave him the space to think about his future, his family, and whether redemption was possible. It was at this crossroads that Darren found a new sense of purpose. He became involved with the Ben Kinsella Trust, an organization dedicated to tackling knife crime through education. The trust focused on educating young people about the dangers of violence, particularly knife crime, and helping them make better choices. Darren saw this as a chance to make amends for his past. to use his story as a cautionary tale for others. Darren became an advocate for change, speaking out against the violence that had defined his life for so long. He shared his personal experiences, hoping to prevent others from making the same mistakes he had. His message was simple: the life of crime, violence, and revenge was not worth the cost. Yet, even as he tried to do good, Darren found himself drawn back into the underworld. As Darren's newfound fame grew, so did the controversies surrounding him. In 2018, Darren appeared on the podcast Anything Goes with James English. What was supposed to be a conversation about Darren's past quickly escalated into a public feud. It started with a disagreement, but Darren's anger boiled over, and he unleashed a string of insults aimed at English and his guest, Marvin Herbert, a notorious gangster with ties to the Kinahan crime syndicate. For Darren, this was personal. He despised the Kinahans, believing they were responsible for numerous shootings in Liverpool, even one that had nearly taken his life. To him, Herbert's association with the Kinahan family represented everything he had fought against, and he wasn't going to sit quietly while they used media platforms to legitimize their criminal influence. Darren's outburst was not well received. His language was offensive, filled with threats and insults, and it quickly caught the attention of the public. The Ben Kinsella Trust, which had been working with Darren, decided to distance themselves from him, stating that his actions and the language he used were contradictory to the values of their organization. They removed him from their campaigns and returned the donations that had been raised through his involvement. Darren, always outspoken, accepted the decision, but knew that his mouth had gotten him into trouble once again. Despite his attempts to leave behind his criminal past, Darren's life was far from free of danger. Even after distancing himself from the criminal world, old enemies from his past were still trying to pull him back in. They saw Darren's success as a threat and wanted to ensure he would never escape their grasp. In 2018, just months after his release, Darren was targeted in a brutal assassination attempt. A group connected to a rival criminal organization made it clear that they weren't going to let him walk away so easily. The attempt on his life was a sobering reminder that once you are in the underworld, it's hard to escape its reach. But Darren refused to let his past define him. He continued his work with the Ben Kinsella Trust, speaking out against organized crime and knife violence, even though the threats against him continued to mount. For Darren, it wasn't just about personal survival. It was about helping the next generation avoid the mistakes he had made. But Darren's journey wasn't just about him. His brothers, who had once walked alongside him in the world of crime, were also victims of the very system they had built. While Darren fought to change his life, the fate of his brothers remained tragic. Darren Gee, or Danny, was the most notorious of the Gee brothers. He had earned a reputation for violence that stretched across the streets of Liverpool and into the prisons where he was locked up. Even behind bars, Danny remained a force to be reckoned with, engaging in violent confrontations with both inmates and guards. His actions led to multiple arrests and a long prison sentence for his involvement in a narcotics conspiracy. Then there was Billy Gee, Darren's older brother. Billy was different. He wasn't as violent as the others. He worked as a civil engineer and was known for being more law-abiding. But behind closed doors, Billy struggled with addiction, mental health issues, and the pain of living a life overshadowed by crime. In 2016, Billy's struggle reached a tragic end when he took his own life. His death rocked the family, and it highlighted just how deep the scars of a criminal life can run. Stephen Gee, another brother, also fell into a life of crime. In 2017, Stephen was arrested for a brutal robbery in which he targeted a 77-year-old man while high on cocaine. His long history of criminal activity earned him a prison sentence of over 6 years. As Darren tried to find redemption, Stephen continued down the same path of violence and lawlessness. With his brothers in prison, dead, or lost to addiction, Darren was left to pick up the pieces of his life. He faced the reality that his family was broken beyond repair, and despite his efforts to change, his past continued to haunt him. There were times when he felt like giving up, like the weight of his sins was too much to bear. But Darren knew there was one last chance for redemption. Darren's journey isn't over. His past will always be a part of him, but the question remains: can he truly escape the grip of the underworld and build a better life for himself? Only time will tell. Darren Gee's story is a testament to the harsh realities of life in the criminal world. It's a story of loss, betrayal, and a relentless struggle for redemption. Despite everything he's been through, Darren continues to fight for a better future. Will he succeed? Only time will tell. If you want to hear more stories from the criminal underworld, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.